Good evening, everyone. Prospects for a ceasefire in Gaza are on the rise as a Hamas delegation arrived in Cairo today, carrying what is believed to be a response to a proposal for a 40-day halt in hostilities. This proposal, reportedly agreed upon by Israel, also includes an exchange of hostages for Palestinian prisoners. Egyptian and U.S. mediators have observed signs of compromise recently. The Egyptian state news channel Al Qahira reported that a consensus on many disputed points has been reached in these indirect talks, though specifics remain undisclosed. Despite these developments, analysts remain skeptical. After 5 months of intermittent talks, the efforts have often collapsed amid challenges reconciling Hamas's demand for a lasting ceasefire with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's firm stance against Hamas's leadership and military capabilities. A senior Israeli official, who wished to remain anonymous, downplayed the likelihood of a complete end to hostilities. He confirmed Israel's plans for an offensive on Rafah, the southernmost city in Gaza, emphasizing that Israel would not end the war merely as part of a hostage release deal. The Wall Street Journal cites Egyptian sources saying Israel has given another week for truce talks before it launches its long-threatened offensive. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken stressed that the only thing standing between the people of Gaza and a ceasefire is Hamas, indicating significant pressure on Hamas to accept the ceasefire proposal to prevent intense new fighting. Blinken also expressed objections to an offensive in Rafah, emphasizing the lack of a credible plan to protect over 1.2 million displaced civilians seeking refuge in the area. The humanitarian situation remains dire, with recent Israeli strikes in Gaza resulting in several casualties. Gaza's health ministry reported additional deaths due to these strikes, with the tally not distinguishing between fighters and civilians. Amid these tense negotiations, Hamas considers the latest truce proposal positively, though internal divisions within the group persist. Observers note the significance of the Hamas delegation in Cairo being led by Khalil al-Hayya, deputy head of the group's political arm in Gaza, reflecting a strategic choice given the internal dynamics of the group. The Israeli government also faces internal pressure, with senior war cabinet members favoring a ceasefire to free surviving prisoners, while far-right ministers push for the continuation of the war. As efforts to establish a ceasefire continue, humanitarian aid flows into Gaza face challenges. Last week, a convoy from Jordan was blocked by Israeli settlers and later commandeered by Hamas militants before being reclaimed by UN officials. Meanwhile, the US-based charity World Central Kitchen has resumed operations, aiming to mitigate the severe food shortages in the area. As this complex situation unfolds, the international community watches closely, hoping for a resolution that brings peace and alleviates the suffering of millions in Gaza. Stay tuned for further updates on this critical story. Thank you for joining us tonight. For more detailed coverage on this and other important stories, be sure to follow our updates right here. Good night.